recovery. Hey fam, you know what time it is. It's your girl, Delisha, your millennial empowerment catalyst, where we get to encourage, inspire, and empower young women around the world. As we continue with our next episode of Leveling Up Your Confidence, we have Miss Toyin Okunga, all the way from the UK. Toyin is an author of the #1 release book, Hush to Roar. Her memoir is a story of love, childhood drama, and her recovery. As a result of her transformational business and book, The Holistic Action Step to Recovery from Childhood Drama, help children and adults to see a light at the end of the tunnel. She is an inspirational speaker, a business coach. She is currently studying for her master's degree in cognitive psychology. She is a mother of 2 teenagers and a wife to 1. Toyin Okunga, great to have you here. How are you today?
Oh, I am great. Thank you so much for having me, Delisha. And I love your show. Oh my gosh, leveling up your confidence. This is amazing. This is what everybody needs. So I'm so grateful that you've, invited me to your show. So I'm excited to be here, Delisha. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Thank you so much for being here. So I read in your bio that your book is about story of love, childhood drama, and your recovery. Can you please share with us what is this like?
So today I will say I stand here just as everything you've just introduced me as, and I wish I could say, oh, that's all right, now I can go home, because that's the end of my story. I'm standing in my greatness and that is it. But you know what? Life promises life,
So
not
true.
ice cream and chocolate, not all of it. So my story began all the way back from when I was a baby. I got fostered from the most amazing white family in the UK. From the age of 2 months old, I was with a white family. I was the only Black child in a community of over 4,000. And I was with them until I was 8. Now, I did get to see my biological family, but I was always with my white family, and I thought I'd always be with them. You know, when you're a child, you just get, because I was always with them. I went to see my biological parents during the weekend, but then I got taken away, and our parents do what they know how with the wisdom and knowledge they know at the time, but there was no notice. So I got suddenly taken away from my foster parents and taken to Nigeria. And all ties were cut, and it was traumatizing for me, because I thought I was writing every single day. Letters were not given to them. They were writing. Apparently, when I grew older, I found out they wrote, but my parents didn't give me the letters, because they thought, you know what, out of sight is out of mind. Now that is not true. It will be in your mind. But anyway, went to Nigeria, and I had so many traumatic events in my life from there. And my world came tumbling down when I experienced sexual abuse from the age of 12 until I turned 15. And of course, I was still recovering from the others. As a child, you just carry on with life. But when that hit, it just messed me up entirely. And it was by a very close family member. In my Hush to Roar, I say exactly who. I do a lot of YouTube videos, so I've not said who yet, but I will be revealing soon. But a very close family member. So it shattered me. It really did shatter me. But I almost thought that was it. I didn't think I would come out of it. I did at some point. Sorry, your listeners, but I did want to take my own life, because it was just too much for me to bear. But I didn't, because I'm just grateful that I had rainbows in my clouds that I kept looking up to say I have to live if I want to see my foster parents again. So I know I came back to the UK, but when you think that your problems are behind you, you've left. No, they have their own passports. They come with you. I thought that was the end, but it wasn't. So I started to experience different things, and at the time I didn't know all those affected me as an adult, because you never do. You just have different thoughts and different triggers that come up, and I'll just get so irritable and angry at things, or people laughing out, it's not funny, don't make fun of a child, don't do this, and it was just like too much. It was driving me crazy. But the things that kept striking me was that people weren't always snappy the way I was, and I was like, why am I always like this? And I'd watch a film, and although, so I realized that there's something not quite right here, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And when I started to watch documentaries and see a lot of things, I did many years of research. And then I realized that I started having a lot of ailments, physical ailments. I had unexplained operations. I had arthritis at a very young age. And this was all when I did my research to do with the traumatic events that I had suppressed and repressed in my body.
Wow.
So, but after I started my healing process, which I said I was not going to give up. I deserve to heal that inner child.
So true. That is so true.
And that's what I did. But it was a long process, but I got there, and everyone can.
So
mind
true.
management.
That is so true. And even now that we are on the topic, healing that inner wound, for some of our listeners who are listening to us right now, help us understand, what are inner wounds?
So inner wounds, they're the deep, traumatic, sort of like emotional and mentally sort of like crippling things that come up. So they're the memories that we have suppressed because we couldn't quite deal with them when it happened, or we just didn't want to think about them, thinking, as I said, out of sight is out of mind. No, it is so in your mind. That's why it's not, so they're the events that are so emotionally crippling to you that you have buried them. So as you said, I'm doing cognitive psychology. So from psychology, the wounds that we don't want to think about, they have come through our consciousness and have gone to our subconscious level. And in my case, and in many people's case, they even go deeper. So think of it like an iceberg. So they're their memories at the tip of the iceberg is outside. That's our consciousness. That's very little compared to beneath the iceberg. We have the suppressed memories, that's the subconscious. We have the repressed memories that are further down in the unconscious, and that is all within our mind. So we store them there and they stay there, and because they're not dead, they are there. Our mind has created these thoughts in us and they stay there. They will only come out in little trigger type strings when something, and then we'll think about it. Some of those that have been repressed, that were maybe abused or had events that they can't quite remember when they were little, maybe young, like 4 or 2, they were there, and then only little triggers would come, but they wouldn't even know what they're remembering because they were too young when it happened.
Wow.
But if you are of an age where you can remember, then you get irritable, you can sweat, it can be a smell. So, so they're the wounds that are deep beneath.
Wounds that are deep. Wow, that is deep. And I like the way you give the illustration of the iceberg, because I'm thinking, the iceberg, the tip is on top, and that's what you see. We see the smiles, we see everything, life happening, life is good, but underneath that, and then after underneath that. Wow, that is a lot. That's a lot. And I love the way you said that it is a process also. So can you tell me, how do our inner wounds form? How do they form?
So they form when we catch those thoughts, whatever happens to us, and we don't deal with the event or the circumstance at the time. They then just go into our mind, and when we put them in there, we don't want to talk about it. So it's like they compile, and we are not talking about it. So if you don't acknowledge that something's happened to you, they are there. So during this time as well, people that have lost people and everything, things that are going so badly wrong, if they just think, I want to get on with my life, let's go, they're going to just put it there. But then those wounds keep getting piled up with other little things. It's like we have other things that are happening, so they keep burying those, but they are still going to be there, and they just form layers and layers like an onion. So they form and form and form, and the more they form in our body, the more we get more like agitated, but they're just seated there waiting to be awoken. We need to wake them up.
Mm,
But if we
mm.
don't wake them up, they keep manifesting in different areas.
Different
So
areas.
they do come out, but
Uh-huh.
not as we like them to.
Wow. So meaning the older we get, even though we try to suppress those down, the older we get, then more likely that those triggers are gonna come to awaken those wounds.
That's it. That's
Wow,
it. So
wow.
it's just we keep them buried there. And when you're a child, your brain is in a situation to protect. The brain protects us. So
Mm-hmm.
the brain, like for me, when I got abused, my brain had to protect me. So it made me suppress. So it was like a good thing and a bad thing. It
Mm.
was good because I could put it down so I could carry on with my life as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But then as you grow older, your brain is developing enough for you to bring it out to the surface and deal with it. But you are repressing it still at an age where you need to now deal
That
with
is
it.
that is so true. And when I really think about it, I recall early in my childhood when I was running from where I was running from self-doubt, low self-esteem, and and also, like you said, you want to commit suicide. No need to apologize there because I know what it is. I wanted to too at that stage, not at an early stage, but later down in my teenage years, and it followed me into my adulthood. But
Mm,
every day I would smile. I'm suppressing those feelings because I don't
yeah.
want anyone to know. And also I
Hmm.
just happy face, okay, happy life, right?
Me too. Yeah.
Down, deep down, those feelings were there.
Mm,
And now that you said it, it's like an onion, as you need to peel it away. And then I found out as I got older that those feelings, they followed me. And I had to deal with those feelings. If I
yeah.
did not, I felt at the moment that I would have taken my life because
Yes.
those
Yes.
feelings, they are rooted and they are rooted deep if you don't deal with them. So I
Hmm.
could I could understand and appreciate what you are saying because I know what it is. And I'm sure that our listeners, you might find yourself in any of these categories. Please, this is no joke. This is really no joke. What Toyin is saying, get the necessary help. And before I go ahead of myself, Toyin, what happens if, I just answered this question, but I want to hear it from you then. What
Hmm.
happens if you never allowed your inner wounds to heal? And why is it
Hmm.
important to get healing, seek healing?
Hmm. Okay. So what we resist persists. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
So you are many listeners out there, sometimes we don't actually know. I mean, like me, it took me years to realize. I had to trace my steps back when things were happening. If you do not, you are going to affect everyone around you because you will keep on having triggers. But those triggers, it could be something little that it will then expand to be so much bigger. You think something small, you make it so much bigger.
Mm,
Why? Because it's not that thing that is the here and now that's causing that. It's you still thinking of those things and that you're bringing to the surface. So you, out of proportion, you start to behave. The relationships with friends, at work, even your children, everybody around you, you get irritable. You're driving, especially if it's like if low self-worth, which I had. If it's, for instance, like you're driving as an adult and someone undercuts you, just goes past you, you would think that you're being taken advantage of again.
mm-hmm.
So your life would be on a roller coaster of emotional and mental stress. It's like we need to manage that mind and say, it's okay. That's it. And if you think positive, like, you know what? He's rushing to get his wife from the hospital. But no, you always will feel negative. Your thoughts will be negative if you don't heal. And that's one reason how you can know whether you're still where the glass is always half empty, not half full. You always feel that they're out to get you, and you
Mm.
make it always about you,
You.
you know. And that's how you know that, you know, there's something not quite right here. And that would be, of course, work, everyone. So if they say something, you be defensive. They say something, you always feel, why are they treating me like this? It's like you've got a victimhood on your head, in your body, because you were like a victim. But now, no, we need to manage that mind and say, that was your circumstance. That's not who you are. But you will
Wow.
always be like that. And those things will come up in different areas that wouldn't ordinarily come out if you had no traumatic event.
Wow, that is good right there. And Toyin, can you tell us how do you know when your wounds are healed? How would you
Mm.
know?
Mm. So it's funny because people always say time heals. So I will say time helps you manage and have healthy coping mechanisms.
Mm.
It does not mean that your wounds will just like heal totally and that's it, and you erase them from your memory, because they are there. But it's like how you cope with them that really matters. So you know that you are healing, or what I'll say, have learnt to live with those that have been ridden with you, when you start to observe your behavior. So you've become one with yourself. So for me now, I had to train myself to acknowledge them, that it happened. And I had to go through cycles and cycles of repair. So you know, when people talk about things, but you see yourself observing your behavior, catching those thoughts, analyzing those thoughts before they embed in your body,
Mm.
and being very logical about your response. That's when you start to know that you're healing.
Mm.
And when you don't make things always about you
You.
or victim, and when you start to see things in an optimistic way. So what I say, you have an OMA. You start to have an optimistic mental attitude.
Mm. Mm. That's good. That's good.
And that's how you know that you are healing, for me. And yeah, that is, there's loads of stages, but that is a first sort of like wraparound of you knowing you're healing. And the wound, you know what, it happened, you can't forget that past, and the
Mm.
time will heal or make you cope better, because we have our brain. I've got my things here. We have our brain, so it is there. And the frontal, this frontal lobe here, which we
Uh,
all have, is about is for our memories, emotions, our personality. This is all where the storage comes. You see all these little nerves.
mhm.
When we start healing, we start to create. We're more creative because we have more time to think about positivity. So we start to have what's called neuroplasticity. Our brain starts to change in a way that we now see things in an optimistic way, and those bad memories are dying away because we're putting creativity in its space.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And that
I
that
love
is
that. I love that illustration. It gives your mind more clarity.
that's it. It gives your mind more clarity. Yeah.
That's good. And I love the way you said, and you cannot think of yourself as being from a victim mentality, because if you continue to think about being a victim, then hey, you
Hmm.
know that there's some healing needs to be done. Mhm.
Definitely. Definitely. For sure.
That is so true. And Toyin, what are some ways that we can help heal our inner wounds?
Mm. So there are steps in healing. So the first thing, I mean, I went through this like loads and loads of times. You go back and so people might come up like psychologists and different people, but if they've not been through a traumatic event, sometimes it's even difficult for them. They have to do research. Even now, as I'm studying, I still do research. But because it's happened to me, I
Mhm.
know exactly what it is and how I've healed. So the first thing that one needs to do is what the whole process, I'll say, is to have like a neurocycle. And that neurocycle is like you're managing your mind. And
Mm.
managing your mind means, first of all, acknowledge what has happened to you. And to even do that first, actually, this neurocycle that has been for a while now is for you to slow down, because when you've had traumatic events, like me, when your inner self, your mind is always racing, and outside feels very slow. And that's how you know that you are, and you just want everyone to move out of the way, because inside you're racing. So you're not balanced with the way things are. So what you need to do is to make that inner self now calm down and be in alignment with outside, which is calm, that you're always racing against, because you just can't, you don't want to think about what's happening, and it's subconscious. So you have to be with yourself. And sometimes it's so, people say meditation, but it's more like just getting to know you, who you are. Most of the time we don't know who we are, and that's why we go on in life, we continue the cycle by getting into relationships that don't serve us, and we continue that generational curse, keep going and doing, letting people hurt us more, because we have not come to know who we are. So you start with yourself and sit with yourself. It's simple like meditation, and listen to things that are coming up, but you don't sort of like think about negative things. It's like you start to think of things that are positive. And if you have like a break where something negative comes, you note it down. So writing was a huge part of me. You write everything, cry yourself silly. Yeah. So what I say is, you've just got to let it out, because feelings that don't cry, that don't come out through tears, will find other organs to hurt. And that happened to me. So it's like you sit with yourself, let it all come out, cry, be vulnerable, write things down, and then you take an action step. Now, that is a difficult one for me, because the abuser, for me, I wrote a letter to the person. Might not be abuser for your listeners, it could be, but I'm just using my example. When I wrote, I had to write. I wrote loads of letters and I ripped them up. Some I burned, but then I was courageous enough and I wrote a letter and I sent it. And that was like, first of all, you can write metacogba in any sort of format, anyhow, come out anyhow. And then you can organize your thoughts, because then it's coming from your head. It's no longer suppressed there. It's coming out, and writing is the best. So write out all your feelings, write out everything that comes up in a horrid way. And then if the person that's hurt you, or some things that's happened, we're grieving, because we grieve from any little thing. We grieve from little things that we feel we've been hurt, we've been cheated. It's still grieving. It's grieving a loss. So you have to write it out. When you write it out, and then you can burn it, or if you're brave enough, send it. I mean, I sent mine. I actually interviewed mine. I went so far because I needed to get to the root of this. So I interviewed my abuser, and I have it recorded. But for your listeners, they can write it out. And if you don't feel brave enough, but don't take the cake out of the oven until it's fully baked. So you need to make sure that you have got your self-compassion and look after yourself first, but see someone who can help, and have sort of like, it's called getting yourself into a love zone. So seeing a therapist, having friends who you can express it to, because they say problem shared is problem half is true. So, but first of all, get to know who you are by sitting and let those emotions come out. When they're out there, then you either go and share it with someone, or just write first, even if you're not going to send it, but write. And then start to acknowledge, and then start to observe yourself, and do breathing, even counting 1 to 5 before it's difficult because we're still learning, but this is a cycle of what has to go on for, like, they say 63 days, I say 70 days, sort of like almost being on, like, this is your exercise every day. You wake up, you have that habit, you sit with yourself, write out everything that's coming up, cry, and then see what emotions come, and then act on those emotions. Breathe, so that you start to be in alignment. And it's just like that continuously, but there's a long process, because after that you start loving yourself, having self-compassion, and not blaming yourself. And I would say, but there are loads of steps, which I'm devising some courses at the minute, but yeah, and find something creative to do. Creativity.
That is That is good. And while you were talking about the steps, and when you said to reach out to a psychologist, and I know for some of my listeners, you might think reaching out to a psychologist that it's embarrassment or you don't want no one to know.
Hmm.
I know how you're feeling because I was there too. I thought it was an embarrassment. But hey, at the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself. You have to look out for your healing and do what it takes for you to get to that point where you are healed and you are able to share with others to say, you know what? It's okay. I've been there and I'm going to encourage you on this journey too. Seek help. It's not that you're weak, but you want to
Mm,
remain strong. So I love that, Toyin. I
exactly.
love that. I love that.
Mm,
And
yeah.
any last words you would like to leave with us, and how can we reach you? How can someone reach you?
Oh, it's been amazing being on your show. I'd love to come again.
Yeah.
So, last words for me would be to say, have be easy on yourself. Be easy on yourself and start with yourself where you are now.
Mm,
Don't think that, oh, look at me now. Yeah, this is all you, this lovely body of yours has brought you this far. So love it. No matter the body you're in, love it. Because it's only been doing everything you've done with it. You
mm,
know, the food you've given it, it's just the way you are. So start with where you are, but start to observe your behavior. Be the observer of you. And that's what I do a lot now. Just I'll be like, oh, okay, Toyin. Sometimes because catch those negative thoughts. Analyze them. Are they really not responding to my call because they don't like me? Or maybe they've gone to work.
mm. That's true.
Just start with little things first before the big things.
Mhm,
Analyze those thoughts before you embed them.
mm,
That's what I will say. Because consciousness, observe what you're taking in. Because once it's in your mind and you ruminate, you think, I can't get rid of this. You are not your circumstance. That's what happened to you.
mm.
The mind that you use your neuroplasticity to form those toxic thoughts, you can rewire and form beautiful thoughts. It throughout our lifetime. Just remember, the brain never dies. The mind is in constant thing. And I just leave just one last thing that I wrote down here, if I can find it, is to say that 3 weeks we can go without food, 3 days we can go without water, 3 minutes we can go without oxygen, but we cannot go 3 seconds without using our mind.
Mm,
So in that case, what if we can't do it? Let's use that mind in a positive way and manage our minds by observing our thoughts, because that's all we've got, the
that's
mind.
that's good. We only have our minds. Once that's dead, then
And it's never too late. So for me, I am on Facebook at hoshtaror.com. I'm on YouTube. I've got Hoshtaror YouTube channel. I'm always posting once a week. I post. You can reach me on Instagram also. Everything's Hoshtaror. Yeah, so hoshtaror.com, www.hoshtaror.com. And yeah, you can get this on Amazon and on my website, www.hoshtaror.com. It will blow your mind away, and everything, the steps, yeah, all emotions will run high, but my recovery is key.
wow,
Because yeah, thank you very much.
that is good. That is awesome. That is awesome. So thank you again for enlightening us about the importance of healing our inner wounds. And for anyone who want to reach Toyin, she gives out her handles. I'm asking you all to reach out to her. You know what you need to do in order to get to your next place, the next step in your life. Don't allow embarrassment to keep you stuck. Toyin is there to help you. So
Oh
thank you
yeah.
so much for joining. We appreciate your likes, your comments, your share. And you can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all at Delisha Murray, your Millennial Empowerment Catalyst. And again, thank you for supporting. And those who supported me on my book yesterday, I appreciate you so, so much. Thank you. You helped me to get to #1 bestseller.
Well done. I'm so proud. Wow. Well done, Delisha. That was amazing. Well
Thank
done. Very well done.
So again, thank you again, and see you on another episode next week on Leveling Up Your Confidence. Have a good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are. Remember that you are loved, you are special, and you are important. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.